This land doesn't belong to you anymore. Diane Reynolds' cold voice echoed through my phone speaker. My heart dropped. But that's impossible, I whispered, gripping the phone tightly. My grandfather never sold an inch of our land. There was a pause, then a predatory calmness filled her voice. You might want to check again. My name is Ethan Walker, and 2 weeks ago, my world flipped upside down. Grandpa's passing had hit me hard. The Walker family farm had stood proudly for generations on 250 acres just outside Redwood Valley. Grandpa had poured his life into cultivating every inch of that land, growing corn and tending livestock, keeping meticulous records in old leather-bound journals. When he passed, he left it all to me, trusting I'd preserve our family's legacy. But I was working full-time in the city, and hadn't visited nearly enough to truly protect what was ours. Now, standing in my office in downtown Seattle, Diane Reynolds, president of the Redwood Valley HOA, was claiming something inconceivable. I packed my bag without thinking, adrenaline pushing me forward as I sped down highways and country roads back to Redwood Valley. The closer I got, the more the familiar peaceful countryside felt disturbingly alien. As I crested the final hill, my heart sank into despair. Giant bulldozers had carved into Grandpa's fields. Bright orange markers dotted the once lush pastures. A large, arrogant sign read, "Coming soon, Redwood Luxury Estates, a premium HOA community." I slammed on the brakes, parked hastily, and stormed onto the site, ignoring curious construction workers who eyed me suspiciously. Diane Reynolds stood by a black luxury SUV, her perfect attire clashing sharply with the muddy chaos around her. "What do you think you're doing?" I demanded, my voice cracking slightly under the weight of fury and disbelief. Diane barely glanced up from her clipboard, clearly annoyed at my interruption. "We're preparing for a residential development, Ethan," she said coolly, dismissively. "Everything here is legal. Redwood Valley HOA purchased this property 8 months ago." I shook my head fiercely, emotions bubbling up. "No, that's impossible. My grandfather never sold this land. He would have told me." She offered a hollow smile, patronizing and cold. "Perhaps your grandfather chose not to share this decision with you, but we have all required permits and approvals." She reached into her purse, handing me a sleek, embossed business card. "Feel free to contact our legal department if you wish. Now, if you'll excuse me, we have deadlines." I stood frozen, feeling utterly helpless as bulldozers continued their relentless destruction of my family's legacy. Feeling lost, I retreated to Grandpa's farmhouse, finding old Mrs. Harris, Grandpa's neighbor and close friend, waiting anxiously on the porch. "They've been surveying your land for months," she explained, hands trembling. "Your grandfather was furious, Ethan. Said they were trying to steal something precious. He'd never have sold willingly." "Did he mention selling at all?" I asked, my voice strained. "Never," she whispered firmly. "But just days before he passed, he seemed obsessed with finding certain documents, kept saying he had proof of something important." That night, as the sky darkened, I finally found the strength to enter Grandpa's untouched office. Dust floated lazily in the dim glow of his desk lamp. The room smelled faintly of tobacco and ancient paper. My fingers traced the rows of leather-bound journals, shelves of agricultural records, and faded photographs. Hours passed as I fruitlessly searched filing cabinets filled with ordinary records. Frustrated, I sat heavily in Grandpa's old chair. Something creaked under my foot, a loose floorboard. Kneeling, I pried it open carefully with a letter opener. Beneath the floor was a locked metal box. The key, worn and rusted, hung discreetly from a nail under the desk. Inside the box, I found Grandpa's original property deed, several surveys dating back decades, and most chillingly, a sealed envelope marked, "For Ethan." My fingers trembled as I unfolded his handwritten letter. "Dear Ethan, if you're reading this, they've come to take what's ours. The Redwood Valley HOA has been trying to claim our land for years. They've brought papers to me many times, tricking me into signing minor easements, but I never sold a single acre. They're liars, Ethan. Check the old surveys carefully. Compare them to current records. The truth lies hidden in the boundaries. Protect what's ours. I trust you. Grandpa. My heart pounded painfully in my chest. Quickly spreading out the yellowed, fragile surveys from decades ago, I compared them with recent county records downloaded onto my phone. The truth hit me like a punch to the gut. Our family land wasn't just the current 250 acres. It originally stretched almost 330 acres. Over decades, our boundaries had slowly, mysteriously shifted, conveniently shrinking in favor of HOA developments. Diane Reynolds wasn't just stealing the fields. They'd already taken large portions of land where existing houses and the HOA's own clubhouse now stood. Sleep eluded me that night. As dawn broke, determination solidified in my heart. Grandpa had prepared for this. He'd left me a weapon to reclaim what was rightfully ours. By 8 a.m., I sat nervously in the office of Robert Mitchell, the best property lawyer in Redwood Valley. His gray eyebrows rose steadily as he examined Grandpa's papers. "This is extraordinary," Robert finally said, removing his glasses. "According to these original surveys, your land extends deep into areas already developed by Redwood Valley HOA. This is potentially massive fraud, Ethan." My voice steadied, clear and resolved. "Can we stop the development?" Robert nodded gravely. "We can file an emergency injunction immediately, but you'll need indisputable proof. These documents will have to be verified by an independent surveyor. Prepare yourself. Diane Reynolds won't take this quietly." I stood, shaking his hand firmly. "Let her fight," I said calmly. "She doesn't know yet, but she's already walked into Grandpa's trap." Stepping out into the morning sun, I felt Grandpa's spirit beside me, giving me strength. I would honor his legacy no matter the cost, but the real battle was just beginning. Diane had no idea I held proof of her HOA's decades-long fraud, a truth powerful enough to tear Redwood Valley apart at its seams. Would justice prevail? Could one person really fight an entire corrupted HOA system alone? My phone vibrated suddenly. A cold chill ran down my spine as Diane Reynolds' name flashed ominously on the screen. I hesitated, then answered. Her voice was sharp, laced with venom. "You've made a serious mistake, Ethan. You don't belong here. Prepare yourself for what's coming." But I wasn't afraid anymore, because the truth was on my side. And the truth, Grandpa always said, was the most powerful weapon of all. "You won't survive here long," Diane Reynolds hissed coldly over the phone. "In Redwood Valley, I'm the law." I swallowed hard, forcing steadiness into my voice. "I'm not leaving, Diane. You stole my grandfather's land, and I'm going to prove it." She laughed bitterly. "Suit yourself. You've chosen war." The line went dead, leaving only a haunting silence. Outside the farmhouse window, heavy construction equipment loomed ominously, paused temporarily due to the injunction I'd secured. My heart raced as I realized Diane Reynolds wasn't bluffing. She was about to unleash all her resources against me. I stepped onto the porch, the morning air crisp and unforgiving. A white envelope, neatly sealed, awaited me on the doorstep. My stomach tightened. Inside was a letter from Redwood Valley HOA's legal team, a formal cease and desist notice. They accused me of fabricating the surveys and threatened massive legal action if I persisted. My hands trembled slightly, anger mixing with dread. Suddenly, tires crunched on gravel as a Black County inspection vehicle approached slowly. An official stepped out, clipboard in hand, eyeing the farmhouse skeptically. "Morning," he said dryly. "County inspection. We've had some complaints about code violations." My pulse quickened. "This property has been in my family for generations. We've never had a violation." He offered a patronizing smile. "New management, new standards. Redwood Valley HOA submitted an urgent safety complaint. Wiring, plumbing, foundation issues. Standard procedure." I gritted my teeth, realizing Diane's threats had begun to materialize. The inspector moved around, scribbling notes as he listed alleged violations, each fabricated, exaggerated, or maliciously interpreted. By the time he left, he'd handed me citations totaling tens of thousands of dollars. I stood helplessly on the porch, watching him drive away. Anger surged within me, replacing fear. Diane might control local officials, but Redwood Valley wasn't just politicians and inspectors. It was people, neighbors, and families. It was time I rallied their support. Minutes later, I was knocking on Mrs. Harris's door. She opened quickly, eyes narrowing in concern. "They've started harassing you already?" she asked knowingly. "Yes. But I'm not backing down," I said resolutely. "Mrs. Harris, who else has suffered under Diane Reynolds and this HOA?" A fierce smile crossed her gentle face. "Come inside, Ethan. I have a list." Sitting at her kitchen table, we pored over names of residents fined for trivial issues. Vegetable gardens deemed unsightly, swing sets removed for violating aesthetics, and elderly homeowners driven out by relentless fines. "My friend, Tom Green, was forced out last year," Mrs. Harris explained. "They kept fining him for his fence. He couldn't afford the lawyers to fight back." I felt a wave of determination. "Diane's been doing this for years," I said. "It's time Redwood Valley fought back. Can you help me organize a community meeting?" Her eyes sparkled. "Honey, I've been waiting years for someone like you." The following evening, I was printing flyers for our community meeting when the lights flickered and suddenly went dark. Silence enveloped the farmhouse, broken only by the gentle creaking of old floorboards beneath my feet. I reached for my phone, realizing there was no service. The line was dead. Outside, headlights cut through darkness. 3 white SUVs emblazoned with Redwood Valley security blocked my driveway. Uniformed men stood defiantly beside concrete barriers they'd placed overnight, effectively trapping me inside my own property. "You're blocking my driveway," I shouted angrily. A security guard replied indifferently. "According to new county regulations, this driveway crosses HOA-owned common areas. Access has been revoked for safety reasons." "This is illegal," I protested. He smirked slightly. "Tell it to the judge." "Oh wait, they're on Diane's payroll." Feeling trapped, I paced the dark house, frustration mounting. Diane was isolating me, cutting off utilities, communications, and even food deliveries. I wouldn't let her intimidation succeed. Gathering all my resolve, I dialed Robert Mitchell, my lawyer, through an emergency satellite phone I'd fortunately brought from Seattle. "They're playing dirty," he said grimly. "But if Diane wants a war, we'll fight smart. Start documenting everything." A soft knock at the back door startled me. I cautiously opened it to reveal Gerald Adams, the HOA's nervous-looking treasurer. "Gerald?" I whispered cautiously. "Why are you here?" He glanced anxiously at the security cars blocking my driveway. "Because what Diane's doing isn't right. The HOA books, there's evidence of financial fraud, money disappearing into shell companies, Diane's family profiting from homeowners' fees." "Why tell me this now?" I asked. He sighed heavily, handing me a flash drive. "Because you're the first person brave enough to stand up. I can't let you fight alone." Gerald disappeared quietly into the shadows, leaving me clutching critical evidence. I inserted the drive into my laptop, eyes widening in shock. Dozens of invoices, financial transfers, falsified minutes, all confirming Gerald's claims. Diane Reynolds had stolen hundreds of thousands of dollars from the Redwood Valley residents under the cover of community fees. Suddenly, my phone buzzed with incoming texts, neighbors I hadn't even met offering support. "We stand with you, Ethan." The Millers. "HOA fined us thousands for our children's playground. Let's fight together." The Carsons. My heart swelled with newfound hope. As dawn approached, my kitchen table was covered with evidence, community messages, and Grandpa's documents, a powerful arsenal Diane hadn't anticipated. She thought she could isolate me, silence me, destroy me. But instead, she'd given me the tools I needed to fight back. I looked through Grandpa's window as morning broke over Redwood Valley. Diane Reynolds believed she had the entire community under control, but she'd made one critical mistake, underestimating the strength of people united by justice. Would Redwood Valley finally rise against the HOA's tyranny? Could Diane's corrupt empire withstand the truth? A new text lit up my screen. My heart raced at the words. "I've got something you need to see. Meet me at Redwood Cafe at noon. It's about Diane. Anonymous. The battle was just beginning, and Redwood Valley was waking up. My pulse quickened as I stepped into Redwood Cafe at exactly noon. Who was the anonymous sender? What secrets did they have on Diane Reynolds? The bustling lunchtime chatter filled the small cafe, a stark contrast to the isolated silence I'd endured at the farmhouse. My eyes scanned the crowd nervously. A soft voice broke through my anxiety. "Ethan. Over here." Turning swiftly, I saw a woman in her early 30s, dark hair pulled back neatly, her eyes cautious but kind. She motioned me to a quiet booth in the far corner. "Who are you?" I asked warily as I took the seat across from her. She hesitated briefly, then extended a shaky hand. "I'm Jessica Harper. I used to work for Diane Reynolds, as her personal assistant. I know exactly what she's done, and how far she'll go." Jessica's words ignited a cautious excitement in my chest. "What do you mean, how far she'll go? What exactly do you know?" She glanced around nervously, ensuring no one overheard. Then she slid a small stack of documents toward me, printed emails and financial records, each page a shocking revelation. "I discovered these before Diane fired me," Jessica whispered urgently. "She's been secretly funneling HOA funds into private accounts for years. She used that money to bribe county officials, inspectors, even a local judge. Those inspections on your farmhouse? Completely fabricated." I flipped through the papers, my heartbeat accelerating. This is enough to stop her for good." She nodded slowly, eyes shadowed by concern. "But Diane's powerful, Ethan. She's ruined lives to protect her empire. She'll do everything to destroy these documents, and anyone connected to them." As if on cue, my phone buzzed sharply, a call from Mrs. Harris. "Ethan, they're here, at my house, HOA security. They're confiscating all my documents. The line went dead abruptly. Panic surged through me. Diane was already retaliating. Jessica's eyes widened with fear. "We have to move, now!" Rushing out of the cafe, documents securely hidden under my jacket, we barely reached my truck when two white HOA security SUVs screeched into the parking lot. Men jumped out, radios crackling, moving swiftly toward us. "Go!" Jessica shouted. Tires screeched as I sped away, heart pounding, narrowly avoiding them. Realizing the battle ahead, I set up an emergency meeting at Grandpa's farmhouse that evening. As dusk settled, neighbors began arriving cautiously, faces reflecting both hope and fear. Mrs. Harris appeared last, shaken but resilient. "They took everything, Ethan," she whispered, voice quivering. "But they didn't break me." As neighbors gathered around, each began recounting years of abuse at the hands of Diane Reynolds and her HOA. "They fined us thousands for planting flowers they didn't approve." The Millers. My daughter's swing set, ripped out overnight without warning. The Carsons. The stories piled up, each more outrageous than the last, and anger simmered into determination. Tom Bennett recorded every word, eyes sharp with conviction. Early next morning, under Bennett's bold headline, the Redwood Valley Gazette hit "Stands Throughout Town." HOA corruption exposed. Community rallies against Diane Reynolds' fraud. The impact was instant and explosive. By midday, local news crews arrived, broadcasting residents' testimonies live. Social media lit up with stories of injustice, community outrage building into a tidal wave Diane couldn't control. Diane herself appeared briefly on local television, struggling to maintain composure. "These accusations are baseless lies intended to damage my reputation," she insisted, voice cracking slightly under pressure. But her power was visibly slipping. Late that evening, as I returned to the farmhouse, relief flooding my tired body, I discovered the door ajar. Inside, the rooms had been ransacked, furniture overturned, and papers scattered. Diane's desperate search for the documents. My heart froze at a chilling note left deliberately on Grandpa's desk. "This was your final warning, Ethan. Stop now or lose everything." Fear mixed sharply with anger. Diane wasn't giving up easily. She was growing desperate and dangerous. The following morning, Robert Mitchell, my lawyer, called urgently. "Ethan, Diane's attorneys have filed new motions, claiming you orchestrated this to extort money from the HOA. This won't end unless we expose her completely, I told him. Jessica Harper's documents show massive financial crimes. He paused, then spoke carefully. Bring Jessica and the documents immediately. I've secured a special court hearing tomorrow morning. Judge Carter is not part of Diane's circle. Hope surged within me. Are you certain? Absolutely, Robert assured me, but move quickly. Diane's trying to discredit everything you've built. That night, Jessica and I prepared our case meticulously, sorting documents and testimonies. A firm knock startled us. Cautiously, I opened the door, revealing Tom Green, the homeowner Diane had forced out. Tom? I asked, surprised. I heard about tomorrow, he said, eyes bright with determination. I've kept something all these years, hoping someday Diane would face justice. From his coat, he produced an old recording device. This tape proves Diane personally threatened me, forcing me out of my home. She openly admits her intentions. Jessica's eyes widened with shock. My pulse quickened. This was undeniable proof of Diane's ruthless tactics. Holding the recorder tightly, I met Tom's steady gaze. Will you testify tomorrow? His voice was firm, unshakable. I've waited years for this moment. My heart swelled with hope. Diane had tried everything to silence Redwood Valley, but she'd underestimated us. Tomorrow, in that courtroom, the truth would finally shatter her empire. Could justice finally prevail? Would Diane Reynolds' reign of terror end once and for all? As dawn approached, I knew one thing clearly. Tomorrow, Redwood Valley would finally reclaim its freedom, and Diane Reynolds would answer for every crime she'd ever committed. The Redwood County Courthouse buzzed with anticipation. Cameras flashed, reporters jostled for prime spots, and a crowd of residents filled the benches. Today was the day Redwood Valley would finally confront Diane Reynolds. Today was our judgment day. I stood nervously outside the courtroom doors, clutching Tom Green's recorder tightly. Jessica Harper squeezed my arm gently, sensing my anxiety. Ethan, the truth is on our side, she whispered reassuringly. I nodded, steadying my nerves. But I knew the battle was far from won. Diane had influence, money, and decades of manipulation at her disposal. Could a single courtroom truly deliver justice against someone so deeply embedded in corruption? Inside the courtroom, Judge Margaret Carter, known for her integrity, presided firmly over proceedings. Diane sat confidently next to her high-priced attorneys, her eyes coldly fixed on me, clearly intending intimidation. My lawyer, Robert Mitchell, carefully presented our evidence: Jessica's financial documents, Gerald Adams' spreadsheets, residents' written testimonies. Diane's attorney aggressively dismissed each piece, labeling them as fabricated accusations by a disgruntled former employee and homeowners with personal grudges. Doubt crept into the room. Diane glanced toward me, a triumphant smirk tugging at her lips, clearly expecting victory. But we had one final weapon: Tom Green's recording. Your Honor, Robert announced firmly, we have a recording that undeniably proves Diane Reynolds has knowingly abused her authority to harass and extort homeowners. Diane's eyes widened slightly, her composure fracturing. Objection! Her attorney shouted hastily. That recording is inadmissible without verification. Judge Carter silenced him with a stern glare. I'll hear it first, then decide. Play the recording. The courtroom held its breath as Tom Green's weary voice emerged from the speaker, followed by Diane's unmistakably cold tone. Listen, Mr. Green. You either sell your house now or I'll bury you in fines until you're homeless. Redwood Valley belongs to me. I make the rules. A collective gasp filled the courtroom. Diane's face paled, her hands visibly trembling. The room erupted in whispers and murmurs of disbelief. Tom Green, sitting behind me, stood slowly. His voice was shaky but resolute. Your Honor, Diane Reynolds forced me and many others from our homes. She threatened us, ruined us financially, and stole our land. Please, don't let her escape justice again. A woman stood next, Mrs. Harris, her eyes glistening but fierce. For years, Diane has tormented Redwood Valley. She turned neighbors against each other, all for profit. Our community deserves peace, Your Honor. One by one, neighbors rose from their seats, courageously sharing stories of fear, injustice, and loss. The emotional testimonies wove together, creating an undeniable picture of Diane Reynolds' ruthless exploitation. Judge Carter listened intently, clearly moved, her expression darkening with every revelation cornered. Diane abruptly stood, losing all composure. Lies, all of it. I've built this community from nothing. Without me, Redwood Valley would be worthless farmland. Judge Carter raised an eyebrow, unimpressed. Sit down, Ms. Reynolds. You've had your chance. Diane, ignoring the warning, lunged forward defiantly. I have connections. You think this little courtroom drama means anything? Redwood Valley needs me. A cold silence followed. The judge's voice was icy. Ms. Reynolds, your threats end here. Given today's overwhelming evidence, I order an immediate suspension of Redwood Valley HOA operations pending a full criminal investigation. Cheers erupted throughout the courtroom, residents hugging, tears streaming down relieved faces. Diane sank back into her chair, shocked, her empire crumbling before her eyes. Outside the courthouse, residents surrounded me, Mrs. Harris hugging me warmly, her voice filled with gratitude. Your grandfather would be so proud, Ethan. Jessica smiled softly beside me. You've saved Redwood Valley. It's time to rebuild. Honestly, openly, and together. Yet amid celebration, my heart weighed heavy. Could Redwood Valley truly heal from decades of division and fear? Just then, Diane Reynolds exited, flanked by security, defiant, yet broken. She paused briefly, meeting my gaze. You think you've won, Ethan? This isn't over. But her words lacked strength now. Her influence had shattered. Still, they lingered ominously, a reminder that healing wouldn't be simple. Late that evening, sitting alone on Grandpa's porch, my phone vibrated suddenly. An unknown number appeared, accompanied by a cryptic message. Diane Reynolds was just a pawn. There's someone far more dangerous behind Redwood Valley's corruption. Meet me tomorrow. Come alone. My pulse quickened. Had we only exposed the tip of a deeper conspiracy? Looking over the farmland, now safe yet shadowed by uncertainty, I knew our fight wasn't finished. Would Redwood Valley ever truly be safe? Who was the real enemy hiding behind Diane Reynolds? I swallowed hard, realizing the battle for justice had only just begun. My heartbeat echoed in my ears as I approached the dimly lit abandoned sawmill just outside Redwood Valley. The mysterious text had instructed me to come alone, but my instincts screamed this was dangerous. Who could possibly be more powerful than Diane Reynolds? Was our entire fight just the beginning? A solitary figure emerged from the shadows, cloaked by darkness. You're brave coming here alone, Ethan. My pulse quickened. The voice was deep, authoritative, unfamiliar. Who are you? I demanded. He stepped forward slowly, revealing the unmistakable face of James Aldridge, the influential Redwood County Commissioner. My blood ran cold. Aldridge had publicly condemned Diane, but now here he was, standing before me, cold eyes glinting with menace. I've underestimated you, Aldridge admitted calmly, lighting a cigarette casually. You ruined Diane, and for that, I'm grateful. She'd become a liability. What do you want from me? I asked cautiously, adrenaline surging. He exhaled smoke slowly, studying me with unsettling composure. Your silence, Ethan. Diane was reckless, but the HOA served my interests. Redwood Valley sits on prime development land, perfect for my future plans. Anger welled within me. So, Diane Reynolds was your puppet? You orchestrated all this? He smiled darkly. Precisely. Redwood Valley's corruption didn't start or end with Diane. If you persist, you'll wish Diane was your only enemy. What if I refuse to stay silent? I challenged, my voice firm despite internal fear. He took a slow step forward, looming ominously. Then everyone you care about suffers. Mrs. Harris, Jessica Harper, even Robert Mitchell. Do you think I can't reach them? My fists clenched, rage searing through me. I won't let you intimidate me. Redwood Valley deserves better. He chuckled coldly, discarding his cigarette. Bravery or foolishness? I suppose we'll see soon enough. With that threat, Aldridge disappeared back into the shadows, leaving me shaken but resolute. Rushing back to the farmhouse, I called Robert, Jessica, and Mrs. Harris. Within minutes, they gathered anxiously in Grandpa's living room. Robert Mitchell was first to speak, his voice grave. James Aldridge controls most of Redwood County's development projects. He's far more dangerous than Diane ever was. Jessica shivered, visibly frightened. He's powerful enough to destroy careers and lives. Ethan, he's right. We need to be careful. Mrs. Harris's gentle voice cut sharply through the fear. We've stood against corruption before. Ethan's already proven one person can make a difference. Now, it's time we expose Aldridge, too. Encouraged by her bravery, I nodded decisively. We stopped Diane together. If Aldridge thinks we're weak, he's wrong. But we need real proof. Just then, Jessica's phone vibrated. Her eyes widened as she read the message aloud. Jessica, I have proof that connects Aldridge directly to Diane Reynolds. Financial records, bribes, everything. But I'm scared. Meet me immediately at my house. Gerald Adams. Our hearts surged with cautious hope. Gerald had already helped us once. Could this finally be our chance to end the corruption permanently? Without hesitation, Jessica and I raced to Gerald's home, fear gnawing at the edges of my thoughts. Arriving at Gerald's house, dread filled me. The front door hung ajar, swinging silently in the evening breeze. Inside, chaos awaited. Papers scattered across the floor, furniture overturned, and Gerald slumped unconscious near the staircase. Jessica gasped, rushing to his side. I quickly dialed emergency services, hands trembling. As we waited, Gerald stirred weakly. Jessica. Ethan. He whispered painfully, handing us a hidden folder he'd clutched tightly. Aldridge. He was here. He wanted this. He struggled for breath. Don't. Let him win. Paramedics arrived swiftly, whisking Gerald away as Jessica clutched the documents tightly, tears staining her face. We returned to the farmhouse, shaken yet more determined than ever. Late into the night, we pored over Gerald's papers. The documents painted a devastating picture. Secret financial transfers from Aldridge to Diane Reynolds. Bribes paid to county inspectors and officials. Aldridge's covert ownership stakes in multiple Redwood Valley developments. I called Tom Bennett from the Redwood Gazette immediately. Within hours, the breaking news exploded online and across local television. Commissioner James Aldridge linked to massive HOA fraud and corruption scheme. Public outrage surged anew. Aldridge, caught off guard, responded hastily with denials, but the damage was already done. The following afternoon, Aldridge confronted me directly at the courthouse, reporters and cameras swarming nearby. You'll regret this, Ethan, he hissed furiously, voice trembling with rage. You've just declared war on powers beyond your understanding. I stood firmly, unwavering. Redwood Valley won't live in fear anymore. Your threats end here. Cameras captured every tense moment as Aldridge stormed away, his power visibly crumbling before everyone. That evening, relieved yet still tense, Jessica and I met with Mrs. Harris and Robert Mitchell at Grandpa's porch. But as we approached, flashing emergency lights cast eerie shadows across the farmhouse. A sheriff approached quickly, expression grave. Mr. Walker, we received an anonymous tip. There's something buried on your land, something dangerous. Confused and alarmed, I followed deputies into the fields. In a freshly disturbed plot of earth, they uncovered barrels marked with toxic waste symbols, clearly planted recently. My stomach twisted painfully. Aldridge wasn't done yet. He intended to frame me, destroy my credibility, and silence us permanently. Could we survive this new, dangerous tactic? How far would Aldridge go to protect his empire? As cameras flashed around us, the sheriff turned toward me, suspicion clear in his eyes. Ethan Walker, you'll need to come with us for questioning. I sat silently in the stark, brightly lit interrogation room at Redwood County Sheriff's Station, heart hammering in my chest. Deputy Sheriff Alan Jenkins stared at me grimly, suspicion etched deeply into his weary face. Toxic waste buried on your own farmland, Ethan? That's a serious crime. Aldridge claims he has nothing to do with it. Please, I pleaded desperately, voice shaking. You've known my family your whole life. I didn't do this. It's a setup. He sighed heavily. Ethan, unless you can prove that, my hands are tied. Aldridge has influence, strong influence. You'll need more than your word. My stomach twisted painfully. Could I really lose everything now, after coming so far? Just as hope began to fade, a commotion erupted in the hallway. Voices grew louder, familiar voices. Sheriff Jenkins opened the door, revealing Jessica, Robert Mitchell, Mrs. Harris, and dozens of Redwood Valley residents gathered defiantly. Sheriff, Ethan's innocent, Jessica said passionately. You know who really planted that waste? Mrs. Harris stepped forward bravely. Ethan fought to save our homes and expose corruption. Aldridge is behind this. The entire community supports Ethan. Sheriff Jenkins hesitated, eyes softening slightly. I felt a glimmer of hope. Redwood Valley was finally united against corruption. Suddenly, a new voice broke the silence. Gerald Adams, pale but determined, entered slowly, holding a USB drive. Sheriff, I can prove Ethan's innocence. I installed hidden cameras at my property after Aldridge threatened me. He didn't realize he walked right into my trap. We held our breath as Gerald played the footage. The grainy images clearly showed James Aldridge and hired men burying barrels marked with toxic symbols on my land. Sheriff Jenkins exhaled deeply, nodding solemnly. Release Ethan immediately. Issue an arrest warrant for Commissioner Aldridge. Hours later, I stood outside Redwood Valley Courthouse amid a massive crowd of neighbors, journalists, and officials. Aldridge, handcuffed and furious, emerged flanked by deputies. Cameras flashed as reporters shouted questions. He paused, eyes seething with hatred. You think this is over, Ethan? Redwood Valley will never survive without me. I stepped forward confidently. You're wrong, Aldridge. Redwood Valley's strength was never you. It was always the people. Truth and unity are more powerful than corruption. Cheers erupted as Aldridge was driven away. Finally, justice had prevailed. Weeks passed. Redwood Valley, once controlled by fear, began rebuilding. At a town meeting held in Grandpa's converted farmhouse, residents discussed openly the new, transparent HOA guidelines. Jessica stood beside me, addressing the smiling crowd. Together, we've reclaimed our community. Ethan showed us we don't need fear. We need trust and cooperation. Mrs. Harris warmly squeezed my hand. Your grandfather would be incredibly proud. Emotion filled my chest. Finally, Grandpa's legacy felt safe, secure, and honored. Late that evening, alone at Grandpa's graveside beneath starlit skies, I whispered quietly, We did it, Grandpa. Redwood Valley is finally safe. Your legacy lives. A gentle breeze rustled the trees softly, comforting and reassuring. For the first time since Grandpa's passing, I felt genuine peace. Jessica appeared quietly beside me, smiling softly. You saved Redwood Valley, Ethan. You gave us hope. I turned toward her, warmth spreading through my chest. I couldn't have done it alone. We all stood together. Days later, Redwood Valley hosted a massive community barbecue at Grandpa's farm. Neighbors laughed, children played freely, and Mrs. Harris proudly displayed fresh produce from the newly established community garden. Robert Mitchell approached, smiling broadly. Ethan, I've never seen Redwood Valley this united. You've sparked something truly extraordinary. Jessica took my hand gently. What you've done here won't be forgotten. You've given Redwood Valley its heart back. I looked around at joyful faces, neighbors, friends, family. This was Grandpa's true legacy. Unity, honesty, and community. As the sun set brilliantly, painting the sky in warm golden hues, I felt Grandpa's spirit beside me. Redwood Valley had faced its darkest threats and emerged stronger, united, and hopeful. But deep down, I understood something important. Fighting for justice, preserving honesty, and protecting our communities. These were battles worth fighting again and again, no matter the odds. Because at the heart of every community lies the courage to stand up, speak the truth, and fight for what's right. Redwood Valley had learned this, and so had I. Looking toward the future, I smiled softly. Because now, I knew exactly what Grandpa had always believed. When you fight for what's right, the truth always prevails.